Hey everyone, this one is for the ladies, especially if you were doing any kind of research on MGTOW or you have searched something, and hopefully my YouTube channel is big enough and my fellow internet brethren out there will link to this and hopefully get it up there because I want this message to get out, and it's an important one. And right now, at this moment in time in early 2015, a concept like MGTOW, abbreviation standing for men going their own way, it's not only embryonic or new. I think a lot of it, not a lot of it, but a lot of people look at and dismiss it as, oh, what nerdy thing is this? Well, I disagree. I do believe MGTOW is going to get bigger. I do believe, well, it is a real thing, so it's not, that much is true. May not be huge, may not be totally popular, but it is real, and I do believe it will be growing, and I do believe, therefore, there are going to be more people down the road looking into it, researching it. So what I want to do is put together a video because as it stands right now, like many other groups, there is a visceral, vitriolic, loud minority that besmirches and ruins it for the rest of this movement or group, if you want to call it that. So what I want to do is early on put this out there, and not even to define MGTOW, because then everyone gets, but to explain these two very general camps that exist within this movement, so that you can separate the wheat from the chaff. You could separate the posers from the real, and as I titled this, you can separate the real MGTOWs from the misogynist MGTOWs, and that's why I wanted to address it. So if any women are looking into this and God, all MGTOWs are bigoted, sexist, misogynist, well, hold on, because you probably ran into one of the more rabid sects of this one. Anyway, so what is MGTOW? We'll start with that. MGTOW means men going their own way. That's an acronym or abbreviation for it. And no one's trying to define it. No one is. It really just means that, men going their own way. And I don't want to get into the minutiae of the philosophy, but it basically means that men do their own thing. It came from men getting divorced, men seeing their fathers get divorced. A lot of it comes from divorce courts and alimony and child support and all. You may disagree with it or whatever. I'm just saying that's where it comes from. A lot of it also comes from men who tried dating, tried doing the right thing, trying to be a nice guy, and found out that didn't work. All the sensitive 90s type stuff. So it is this backlash where it's like, screw you guys. Fuck this bullshit. We did it the right way. We did exactly what we're told, and it didn't get us anywhere. Now we find out, the girls like, as always, the big rip dudes and the motorcycle guys and all that other stuff. So after a while doing what they were told, men started to realize that they're finite, and some of them just got put through the ringer. I met two guys last night. Holy cow. And they say, forget it. I'm going to die. I'm going to be finite. I'm going to do my own thing. Now, in an ironic sense, this is originally what makes men more attractive. Where men, and you girls will certainly vouch for this, when you have a guy following you around like a puppy dog, oh my God, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? You're like, get the fuck, that's creepy, that's stalkerish or whatever, and they're just a wimp, they're just a putz. But if you guys are like, what, fuck you, sweetheart, I'm going to go climb that mountain, I'm going to go run this thing, I got shit to do in my life, and if you want, you're more than happy to tag along and be part of it, but I'm going to do this, and that's the path of my life that I'm going to go. And women like that, because that man's an individual. He's doing his own thing. He's leading his own life. So, ironically, as men change the focus from putting women first in their life to myself, and I'm going to become an individual, that actually makes someone who's an individual, gives them character, feels that they're just not a supplicant, ass-kissing brown noser. There's somebody who's like, no, I'm going to do this thing, and then that person becomes an individual, and then it's much easier to fall in love with an individual because that's what you fall in love with and are attracted to. Same thing could be said for women. A girl that like constantly calls you, like, oh, what the fuck? You want a girl kind of doing her own thing or something like that. Anyway, so it's not this horrible, I hate women and fuck them. It's a simple reprioritization where it's like, what guy, 14 to 24 doesn't have women at the top of their list? Well, now it shifts. It's like, wait a minute, you know what? I got to do something else. And so they go and they don't kick women out of their lives. They don't hate women. It's just women are not the number one thing in their lives anymore. Now, this becomes because it's real and because it addresses probably the most important thing in men's lives, how do we spend our life and time between women and our own lives? It attracts a lot of men not just those who have been hurt or have been driven through painful experiences, but other men who've like philosophically think about it and kind of why they had their own dating experiences. But at the same time, like any other kind of religion or ideology or an idea, it could be abused by some people. And this is where you get your two groups or your sects within. And I broke them down before in a different video called Veteran MGTOW, and this one I'm calling the Misogynist MGTOW. And I hate breaking these down into groups because it sounds so academic and it sounds like I'm some kind of freaking women's studies professor. I don't mean to sound like that. I'm just, for the discussionary purposes of this video, that's what I'm doing. The veteran MGTOWs, I call them veterans because they've gone through some kind of experience. They have real-world experience getting shot down, not even shooting down, like they've just tried dating a lot of girls and it just wasn't worth it, or, the girl was crazy, psycho, bipolar, fake pregnancies, divorce, children, alimony, cheated. I mean, the list is endless. But whatever it is, they've actually gone out and dated women. They have had women in their life, or they've gone out and tried to ask out women. But for what we're calling the misogynist MGTOWs, these guys look at it as an excuse to excuse away their cowardice and their laziness. They're too cowardly to even ask girls out. They're too afraid that they're going to get shot down. They don't have enough courage to approach a woman, and they certainly do not want to lift weights or do whatever that would be necessary to attract a woman. And I have notes here, but another thing I do want to add, and I apologize for the interruption, but I do want to make sure I'm thorough. Okay. So they see this, and the ego is strong among both men and women, but with these particularly intellectually weak, I'd even say intellectually dishonest young men, and I'm saying young, but they can be older, but they're typically younger. Here's this perfectly crafted excuse for them not to try. It excuses their cowardice, their intellectual dishonesty, their laziness, and all that. And they just say, well, she wouldn't go out with me anyway. I'm smart enough to go my own way. I'm MGTOW. It's like, dude, you're 13. You don't even have 3 pubes. You haven't asked out Susie Q to the frickin' Sadie Hawkins dance. What the hell are you going to make? You're not even a man. What the hell are you talking about? And so I made this video called Abusing MGTOW because I saw more and more of this happening. And they're the loud, but they're not the majority. They're just the loud minority. The kids, they don't have jobs. They're busy at home, on their dad's computer doing this. They're getting pissed off right now too. And my whole premise was that, like, you're not. How do you never even tried going out with these girls? You don't even know if you would be successful with them or not. And I called bullshit on it. I said, this is bullshit. You guys are cowards. You're weaklings. You're lazy. You're intellectually dishonest. You've never tried. You've never gone through fire. You're not battlefield experienced. And you're just using this as something to excuse away your character flaws. Right? And, oh my God, did they not like that? And I got... Now, the vast majority of people did like the video, which is why I say the majority of MGTOWs probably are more on the veteran side. But again, I saw this, and it's 15, maybe 20% of the quote MGTOW guys that fall into this misogynist MGTOW. And how dare you? I mean, really, I got these kids saying you have no honor, and their whole philosophy, and it shows you the mental acrobatics and cowardice they'll go through to protect their ego. It's like, well, I don't have to walk on a minefield to know it's not good for me, and I don't have to play Russian roulette to know it's a risky game. I saw what happened to so I don't have. Why would I waste my time? And without even giving women a shot, they immediately dismiss them, which I view as misogyny. Now, of course, do they hate women? I don't think they actually hate women, but when you start making judgments and dismissing entire segments of the population because of a race or a gender or whatever, that is the definition of bigotry. And that's why I am labeling them misogynist MGTOWs. Because if you're a woman, they're completely dismiss you. And then some of it really is just hate, where it's like, oh, fuck women, they're only good for fucking, and even then you don't want, because then they'll poke holes in the condom. I mean, they without dating one, and completely ignoring the good women that have been in their lives. I don't know one person who has all bad women in their lives. And to be so warped to dismiss women, and they're all evil, and they're all out for money, and they're all in it. You could see where I'm calling them misogynist. Of course, some people will argue, and no doubt I'll be, well, I have no honor, and don't worry, I'll be getting attacked for this later. But again, this isn't for them; it's for you guys. So that's where you see this what you would view as hate or vitriol, bigotry, misogyny, sexism, and stuff like that. Right now. The problem is it's like ISIS and Muslims. I mean, you see, the majority of Muslims are not radicalized. I got Muslim friends, and I got two yahoos out in Morocco I'd like to go hiking with sometime if I ever run into them. I have acquaintances that are Muslim, family of Muslims that I know. I help out one of the kids with giving them one of my book. And so that's the majority. These are good people, just like you. There's not genetically from Europe. But then you got ISIS blowing up and burning babies in cages, whatever they're doing, the latest thing now. It's like that. It ruins the reputation, or at least besmirches or lessens the reputation of other Muslims. And then, same thing with Christianity. The crazy nutjob Christian group down in the South, that the hate group that protests the veterans' funerals, those crazy nutjobs. Well, yeah, they're Christians, they all fall under this big umbrella of Christianity. Well, it's the same thing, we all fall under this thing, MGTOW. Yes, those boys are technically going their own way for flawed reasons, but they technically are. And I think they're passing up on something that'd be potentially very great and wonderful in the lives. But then there are the veteran MGTOWs who, again, through the divorce courts or psychotic girlfriends or just player burnout or just not having enough, they've said, you know what, I got to make some changes in my life. But they don't hate, they love women. Some of them are even married. I'm a MGTOW, but I have a girlfriend. Arini, Bachelor, pretty much every guy I know, it is a philosophy of, you would almost have to say, more individualism. Not necessarily even greed, but you know what, I'm sentient, I'm an independent person. Before I die, I'm going to go and do these things. I'm going to live my life the way I want. And you are certainly welcome to join. But we do not hate women. And so I did want to differentiate between that, because what's going to get more play in the media, what's going to get more play on the internet, and what you're probably going to be shown down the road as MGTOW gets more and more popular, is that it's going to be a hate group. The Southern Poverty Law Center is going to go say, oh, look, MGTOW. And then you're going to besmirch what I estimate to be 80% of these men who are not misogynists, who are not hate-filled, who are not pissed off. So I've come up with some traits for you to be able to identify the misogynist MGTOW. And yes, this is just to goozle their gizzle a little bit. But it's important because you're going to see these. Now, these traits are not 100% correlation coefficient. But just so you can understand, I'm kind of looking out for these things. All right, first, the cowardice thing. If you see them where they say, I don't need to know to walk on a minefield, you have to understand that they're cowards. They do not want, they've never approached a girl. They even have terms like incel, which means involuntary celibacy. They have, what is it, the other one? Incel, and there was another one. They have terms like, meaning, total forced loneliness. And you search it, there's websites, like complete ones, and I'm going to get them all pissed off. So it's a true total forced loneliness is that you're such a nerd or such a social outcast that no girl will even give you the time of day. So they'll point to that and they'll say, look, see, I can't, it's out of my control, I can't do anything, right? That leads me to the next one, laziness. It's like, well, if you went to the gym, if you lifted weights, or if you dieted, or you went and tried to talk to girls, or even if you did get shot down, you got to come over the fear, you got to come over the cowardice, you got to have the courage to do that. Then you have to, present something, bring something to the table. And that's too much work for them. And they are identical. They're not similar to, they're not correlated with, they're 100% identical as to the fat acceptance movements of feminists. Feminists and the fat acceptance movement are the same thing. They're just too damn lazy to go and hit the gym. They're too damn lazy to pull a Twinkie out of their mouths. And it's not them that has the problem, it's you that has the problem. Men have too high a beauty standards. Men are misogynistic, shallow assholes for liking women with big boobs and long hair and tight asses and long legs. It's not that. It's that you're too lazy to give them what they want. This leads to the third variable, third trait. They absolutely lack altruism or selflessness when it comes to women. Like, this is important not just for dating, but for functioning in the real world. If you want to get along with the rest of society, you have to do what other people want. That's the whole concept of a job. I just don't show up to a job and someone gives me money and I leave. You have to do something in return. You have to provide something of value. And dating is the same thing. What do you bring to the table? The fat acceptance women and the misogynist MGTOWs, I mean, they should be married, right? The exact same philosophy. They don't have the capacity to think of other people, to be selfless, to say, oh, what does that person want? So if I want to date Susie Q, and I know Susie Q likes, what typically girls like, a guy who's fit and in shape, works out, has his act together, I am going to bring that to the table so I can get Susie Q. Now, if I am gone my own way and reprioritize my life, you know what? I really just want to read. I think you guys know some of those people. Like they just want to read. You could almost call them hermits, but that indicates some kind of like psychological problem. But they're not. They're content. They're happy with it. And you know what? I just want to go fish. Blah, 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 and then maybe that one really special girl that kind of is equally reserved comes along. That's not what I'm talking about. Those people, they purposely really want a life of solitude and ease and serenity. But most people want to meet or hook up or fall in love with a member of the opposite sex. So you have to say, what does that other person want? And it's not just physical stuff. You have to be charming. You have to be funny. Women have to be sweet. They have to be kind. Intelligent or a little bit witty too. I mean, different strokes, different folks. The larger point is, you have to ask. You have to be at least selfless enough and thinking of the other person enough to say, what do they want, and then I'm going to deliver it to them. These people, the misogynist MGTOWs and the fat acceptance crowd over at the feminist side of things, are so selfish. They do not want to do that. And you could see it again if you want to identify it. Say, I don't pedestalize women. You're just a blue pill. You just swallow the blue pill whole. I don't live a life just for pussy. You're going to see these phrases. You ever see Night and Day? There will be some keywords. Safe place. Off-site. Something. It's a great flick. Night and Day. Great flick. You'll see these key phrases and key buzzwords, and that will kind of give you the flag that those are the misogynist MGTOWs. And then finally, you'll see them, not finally, I'm sorry, I forgot, boy, I gotta keep, where'd the fifth note go there, Cleary? Okay, all right. You'll also see a psychological profile similar to those who are religious zealots, like they have nothing else going on in their lives, and this is the only thing they have. You see this with born-again Christians. Their lives are miserable, it sucks, and then they find out Jesus, and it explains everything, and it assuages their own guilt and forgives all the crappy decisions they made. It takes responsibility out of their hand. Very similar. MGTOW, men going their own way, it's kind of a very similar thing. Oh, it wasn't your fault anyway. The girl's never going to go out with you. It was no, oh, these women are all whores. It provides a forgiveness and alleviates them of any kind of responsibility, or I don't even want to say duty, because it almost implies that you have to ask girls out, which you don't. But they have a religious fervor, where if you dare attack it, like, oh, fuck yeah, I mean, like a violent response, because you're trying to expose a mirror to them and show them that they're being hypocritical. So, really true believers, they believe in their faith. It's not a shallow belief. It's not a hollow belief. It's not a substitute for something. They'll be like, well, yeah, I believe that. And okay, if you don't believe it or you criticize my beliefs and my religion, yeah, I understand. Those are great arguments, but here's what I believe, or here's the scripture or the doctrine or the book that says, that addresses your concern. And so true believers don't get flustered or angry. Zealots, hypocrites, who are abusing it and using it as a shield to excuse hypocritical behavior, or living in denial, they get pissed. They get angry. And then finally, and this is where things get really interesting. We'll see if I'm right. I could be wrong, but I have a sneaky suspicion. They're avatars. Avatars? Yeah, they're avatars. You'll never see their faces. See, you see my face now, because I'm a handsome devil. No, you see my face because I don't give a fuck. Because I truly believe this, and I don't care. I think a lot of these guys, if you saw their faces, at least a fat acceptance, those women go out in public and do a fat walk. You go, okay, they're loud and they're proud. At least they're out there. At least you see them. At least they'll show their faces. These guys won't. I understand, of course, internet privacy, why you may not want to have your face out there. And there are some really good YouTubers that do have it. But a perfect example is this guy called Barbarossa, or Uncle Barbar. Look him up. I've never seen a picture of him. And I've gotten into debates and arguments with some of these people over the internet. And here's the other sneaky suspicion I have. The language and the syntax, you're not dealing with a 45-year-old adult. I almost feel like these guys are like 16, 17, 18. Lord almighty, it could be a really smart 13-year-old kid. You know, the parents, my child is 5 years old but reads at the 8th grade level. You could have a 13-year-old who writes at about a 23-year-old level, but there's just some things where it's like, no. And what I really fear is that, addressing the religious zealotry issue again, is that this is the first time these nerds, these losers, I like nerds, I was a nerd myself, but these losers is a better term, these losers have had any kind of power, any kind of command, because they get a following on the internet, or they get a bunch of guys, yeah man, yeah, fuck women, and I think it's the only time they've ever had any kind of like camaraderie, or like a tribe, or sense of strength. But if it was to find out that they are the quintessential basement-dwelling nerd, or loser, because again, not to besmirch the nerds, but, you know, a couple people like, here's a picture of so-and-so, I'm like, no way. He's like, yeah, that's, I'm like, that fucking hypocrite. So I know a couple of them out there, I'm like, good lord. And it fits the profile. It's like, you know, not the number one complaint, but the number one stereotypical accusation of a feminist is, you're fat, you're ugly, and you're alone with cats. Well, there's some truth to that stereotype, because you see them, like, you go on the Women's Studies Department page, you're like, oh, jeez, why? God almighty, why? I wonder if it wouldn't be the same thing with these misogynist MGTOWs. They're a bunch of ugly, loser, and heaven forbid, 14 or 13-year-old, genuinely basement-dwelling type guys who are leading this fake... There's a great cartoon series called Cowboy Bebop, and there's a digital terrorist, or internet terrorist, that starts shutting things down. And after they figure out where the IP address is coming from, it's in one of these episodes, they find out it's a kid who's in a coma but has access to a computer through his hookup in his brain. And it's kind of like that. You find out it's not this daunting, threatening terrorist. It's a kid who's 14, 15 years old. And I'm wondering if that isn't kind of the same thing, because that's all their lives are, because they have nothing else in their lives. Anyway, so larger point of this video, be able to identify them and realize they are not us. All right? Yes, Christianity. Yes, Islam. Yes, I'm trying to think of something else. Yes, soldiers. Yes, corporate executives. There's every large group of people, there's good apples and bad apples. These are bad apples. These are people I would rarely do I consider much of things of a hate group, because I think hate is a necessary emotion. But I would almost push this as calling it a hate group, because I don't see anything good coming of it. I really don't. Even for them. But for the love of God, I want to draw the line in the sand, make a very clear line between us and them. That in the future, when people start looking at misogyny, MGTOW, male-female relationships and dynamics, and this MGTOW becomes a bigger and bigger, more prominent concept or reality or fact in the real world, that you do not let that group, that minority of losers, paint the rest of us veterans with misogyny and hate and all that. So, and if you really want to find out if we're really haters or lovers, well, you could always come hang out with them. For you, misogynist MGTOWs, that was called charm. That was called flirting. I don't know. It's a concept. You know what? It'd take too long. You'd actually have to take effort to learn something like that. Anyway, that's all we got. Toodles.